they have to watch so many of their friends die. Immediately I thought, number one, how just freaking lucky I was.
What if I told you that Blake Lively's biggest scandal isn't confined to the courtroom, but was actually unfolding behind the scenes in the casting room, and that Brandon's, the actor she helped secure a major role, might be the smoking gun that exposes the full extent of her maneuvering? This isn't just about Hollywood backstabbing or petty rivalries. It's about power, influence, and strategic manipulation at the highest levels of the industry. According to multiple court documents and depositions, Blake allegedly leveraged her position to consolidate loyalty among key cast members, while simultaneously undermining Justin Baldoni's reputation and authority on set. The moves she made weren't casual favors, they were calculated decisions designed to build alliances, reward compliance, and subtly shift the balance of power in her favor. Take Brandon Skleiner, for example. At the red carpet premiere of The Housemaid, he casually mentioned that Blake had put in a good word for him with the director Paul at first glance. That might seem like an innocent professional recommendation, but Paul himself later confirmed that Blake actively lobbied to get Brandon cast. This was not a small gesture. It was a deliberate effort to elevate someone she favored, creating a sense of indebtedness and alignment. Around the same time, court filings suggest that Blake was allegedly orchestrating a campaign to discredit Justin Baldoni, positioning herself as the influential figure behind the scenes while Brandon benefited from her guidance. She reportedly flew him to high-profile events, praised him publicly, and provided opportunities that positioned him as a rising star, culminating in his starring role in a Paul-directed film. The timing of all these events strongly suggests coordination rather than coincidence. Even his response to criticism, replying to Sydney Sweeney's snake emoji with a smug wink, paints a picture of someone fully aware of and comfortable with the dynamics Blake was allegedly creating. But the story doesn't stop at casting favoritism. This was a full-scale loyalty buyout. Blake allegedly flew both Brandon Skleiner and Isabella Ferrer to the Book Bonanza charity event, which was initially intended for Colleen Hoover and Justin Baldoni, covering their travel, luxury accommodations, and VIP treatment. According to the filings, these were personal arrangements. Sony, the studio backing the project, didn't cover any of the expenses. Every detail from first-class flights to exclusive event access appears to have been meticulously orchestrated to cultivate influence, ensure loyalty, and reinforce Blake's control over the social and professional environment of the cast. These actions, combined with her alleged efforts to marginalize Justin Baldoni, paint a picture of strategic manipulation where personal and professional power were leveraged to shape outcomes, influence perceptions, and reward those aligned with her interests. In short, what may look like generosity or mentorship on the surface could, in this context, be interpreted as part of a broader, calculated effort to reshape the cast dynamics and consolidate control. So ask yourself this: why would Blake Lively spend that kind of money unless the goal was to flip people against Justin Baldoni? According to producer Alex Sachs's sworn testimony, Blake used that exact event as a strategic moment to isolate Colleen Hoover, unload a barrage of accusations about Justin, and convince those around her that he was some kind of monster. What made this especially jarring is that, up until that point, Justin had a strong working relationship with virtually everyone involved. There were no formal complaints, no HR reports, no whispers of chaos or misconduct. Then, suddenly, almost overnight, the atmosphere shifted. The tone changed, people went cold, and on that very same day, nearly every major cast member unfollowed Justin on Instagram. That doesn't happen by accident. That looks coordinated, deliberate, and intentional. What makes this even more unsettling is Blake's relationship with Brandon Skleiner during filming. The two barely shared screen time and had minimal interaction on set. There was no long-standing bond or close collaboration to explain what came next. Yet after Brandon was showered with perks, praise, exclusive invitations, and career-boosting opportunities, he suddenly emerged as one of Blake's most vocal defenders. He began publicly supporting her narrative, posting statements about how she had been mistreated on set despite never having witnessed any of the alleged incidents himself. That isn't organic loyalty. That's influence bought and reinforced through access and opportunity. But when Justin finally pushed back, the story took a sharp legal turn, and that's where Blake's carefully constructed narrative began to unravel. In newly unsealed deposition transcripts, Justin Baldoni was confronted with a startling allegation. Blake's attorney suggested that Justin had told Brandon Skleiner something along the lines of, "I can't say anything on this set anymore or I'll get cancelled." It sounds dramatic, almost scripted, but Justin flatly denied ever saying it. He testified that it didn't even sound like something he would say. So where did it come from? According to Justin, the claim traced back to Jenny Slate, who said Brandon told her that Justin said it. Let that sink in. This wasn't first-hand testimony. It wasn't even second-hand. It was a chain of hearsay passed from one person to another, then elevated to the level of a serious allegation. Even more damaging to Blake's narrative is the simple reality of Justin's role. He couldn't be pushed out quietly or silenced on his own set. He owned the production company. He was the director. The idea that he was walking around in fear of cancellation, whispering to cast members simply doesn't align with the facts or the structure of the production, and the court record reflects that disconnect clearly. Perhaps most critical of all, when witnesses were directly asked whether the alleged discomfort on set was rooted in gender-based misconduct, they couldn't say yes. That's a major problem for Blake's case, because her entire legal theory depends on proving that what happened was specifically tied to gender, yet the evidence doesn't support that claim. Physical interactions like hugging occurred with both men and women. Wardrobe-related comments such as remarks about an oversized fleece onesie were mundane and non-sexual. Claims about improvised nudity were addressed directly in filings, which pointed out the obvious. People do not wear pants during childbirth scenes. The court even described some of these allegations as absurd. There were no contemporaneous HR complaints, no reports filed at the time, no paper trail supporting a hostile or abusive environment-only accusations that surfaced after Blake lost control of the film. And that's when the real motive begins to come into focus. This was never about safety or protection. It was about power, control over the narrative, control over the production. And next, you'll see exactly how Blake allegedly used that power to try to push Justin out of his own film. This is the point where the mask fully slips and Blake Lively's true agenda comes into view. While everyone was distracted by Blake Lively's carefully constructed victim narrative, she was allegedly orchestrating a behind-the-scenes takeover of It Ends With Us, and according to court documents, she succeeded. Let's break down exactly how this unfolded. In Blake's offer letter, the actual legal document she demanded mutual approval rights over almost every key aspect of the production, the co-lead, the director, and even the hair and makeup team. That meant if she didn't like someone, she had the power to block them from working on the film. But here's the real kicker. In the event of a tie in decision-making, the final vote went to the producers. That's where the strategy gets interesting. Blake allegedly flipped the producers to her side, pushing for Alex Sachs to be promoted to equal power with Justin Baldoni's longtime producing partner, Jaime Heath. She then brought in Todd Black, a high-profile A-list producer, to tip the scales even further. At that point, Justin was outnumbered, lost his producer credit, and forfeited his tiebreak power. Blake now had effective control over post-production, boxed Justin out, and surrounded herself with allies who would vote in her favor. She pushed for her preferred cut of the film, the same version she had lobbied for during the book Bonanza event, and this cut was actively promoted by cast members loyal to her, while Justin was effectively silenced. This wasn't empowerment or creative leadership. According to the filings, it was a calculated hostile takeover. Once she had full control, the lawsuit followed. And it doesn't stop there. Ryan Reynolds, often assumed to be a peripheral figure in all this, allegedly played a strategic role as well. He isn't just Blake's husband. He's described in court documents and media reports as her full-time PR weapon. While Blake allegedly worked to damage Justin Baldoni's reputation in court, Ryan was profiting from chaos and leveraging public attention. One example, after Quentin Tarantino publicly criticized actor Matthew Lillard, Ryan brought Lillard into a Mint Mobile ad, mocking the insult and capitalizing on the drama. This is consistent with past behavior, like the infamous cheating scandal ad, where Ryan turned real-world heartbreak and celebrity scandal into a punchline to sell a phone plan. It's a pattern of monetizing drama and controlling the narrative while public attention is high. Meanwhile, Blake allegedly planted stories highlighting her generosity, like giving $400 gifts to friends, a move that dropped just days after Taylor Swift made headlines for distributing $200 million in team bonuses. The timing was criticized online as tone-deaf and self-serving, reinforcing the perception that these moves were more about image control than altruism. Sources also allege that Ryan Reynolds maintained similar selective, snobbish standards in his personal and professional relationships, further demonstrating the couple's focus on power, image, and influence rather than truth or fairness. But the tide began to turn once Wayfair's legal team responded. Justin Baldoni's attorneys systematically dismantled Blake's claims. First and foremost, they highlighted the absence of evidence showing that any alleged misconduct was gender-based, a fatal blow to a sexual harassment case. Specific claims were scrutinized and refuted. Wardrobe comments that were supposedly sexual involved a baggy fleece onesie. Alleged unscripted nudity occurred during a childbirth scene, which the court noted is an obvious, standard circumstance. Hugging happened with men and women alike, and crew member Jamie Heath's presence in her trailer was clarified to be innocuous, with Blake later admitting there was no intent to harass. Even her own witness, Alex Sachs, admitted there was no clear evidence of gender-based misconduct. What remains is a lawsuit valued at $100 million, built on vague allegations, mischaracterized incidents, and alleged strategic manipulation of the cast and crew, but lacking any substantive evidence. And now, according to reports, Blake is facing additional scrutiny for allegedly planting snare websites and possibly providing misleading testimony under oath. In short, her courtroom narrative, once dramatic and compelling, is unraveling under legal scrutiny. You thought Blake Lively's situation was limited to courtroom drama, but according to multiple lawsuits and sworn filings, this controversy spilled far beyond legal arguments and into a murky world of stolen phones, leaked communications, and an aggressive PR war that unfolded quietly behind the scenes. And at the center of this storm is Hollywood crisis publicist Stephanie Jones. Her name now appears repeatedly in legal filings because of what allegedly happened after her former business partner, Jennifer Abel, left their firm. According to the lawsuits, Jones is accused of taking possession of Abel's phone after the split. What was on that device, private texts, emails, and internal messages, allegedly became a powerful weapon. Those communications, meant to be confidential, were reportedly accessed by Jones's team and then circulated internally. From there, the contents allegedly found their way into Blake Lively's legal orbit and ultimately into a damaging New York Times article that painted Justin Baldoni in an extremely negative light. Justin Baldoni and Jennifer Abel are now suing, claiming their privacy was violated and that these private messages were selectively used to manipulate the public narrative. According to their legal argument, this was never about uncovering truth or protecting anyone. It was about controlling perception, shaping headlines, and weaponizing the press to support Blake's version of events. To be clear, there is no direct evidence that Blake herself physically handled the phone or personally leaked anything to reporters. However, court filings emphasize that her legal and PR teams allegedly benefited enormously from the information that surfaced. The timing, they argue, was far too convenient to be accidental, and the alleged damage control didn't stop there. As public opinion began to shift, Blake's team appeared to pivot to image rehabilitation. Just days after social media criticized her for publicly highlighting $400 holiday gifts to friends, Taylor Swift was being praised for distributing nearly $200 million in bonuses to her tour crew. A news story suddenly appeared in the press. The headline claimed Blake had sent Taylor Swift a secret, heartfelt birthday message. According to celebrity columnist Rob Shooter, the message was supposedly brief, emotional, and sent with no expectation of a reply. Yet that so-called private message somehow became public knowledge on the exact day of Taylor's birthday. The obvious question followed immediately: who leaked it, and who stood to gain? Taylor Swift did not acknowledge the message publicly, did not respond, and sources confirmed Blake still has Taylor's phone number if the goal was genuine reconciliation. Critics asked, why not send a private text and leave it there? The answer, many believe, is that this wasn't about sincerity, it was about optics, carefully curated narratives designed to soften Blake's image at a moment when public trust was slipping fast. But by this point, the strategy appeared to be failing. Critics weren't buying it, not after allegations of career sabotage, not after an entire cast seemingly turned against Justin Baldoni in unison, and not after reports suggested more money was being spent on legal maneuvering than on charity or reconciliation. Once observers began tracing the pattern, student loyalty shifts, unexplained promotions, and quiet rewards, the picture grew harder to ignore. According to court filings and public reporting, Blake was not acting alone. She allegedly had support from producers, co-stars, and industry insiders, some who stayed silent, and others who appeared to benefit directly. It began subtly: private dinners, paid travel, exclusive invitations, and access to powerful people. But by the time it was over, nearly the entire It Ends With Us cast had publicly aligned with Blake, while Justin Baldoni was isolated. Brandon Skleiner, Isabella Ferrer, Jenny Slate, and even author Colleen Hoover ultimately sided with Blake, and critics point out the timing raises serious questions. After Blake reportedly paid for Brandon and Isabella to attend Book Bonanza, their public behavior shifted. Promotion of Justin stopped. The discussion of personal on-set experiences disappeared. Messaging became uniform. And then came the professional wins. Brandon landed a major role in Paul Feig's next film after Blake personally vouched for him. Jenny Slate was cast in Carousel, an indie project produced by Alex Sachs, one of Blake's closest allies in the dispute. According to Baldoni's legal team, these were not coincidences. They argue these were incentives, not accidents, rewards for loyalty in a high-stakes power struggle. And when viewed alongside the alleged phone data leak, coordinated unfollows, and synchronized media narratives, the lawsuits claim a disturbing pattern emerges: not a quest for justice, but a calculated campaign to control the story at any cost. Meanwhile, Justin, who, by all accounts, had solid working relationships with these same people throughout filming, was left completely blindsided. Almost overnight, the tone shifted. Cast members unfollowed him on social media, messages went unanswered, invitations disappeared, and in some cases, individuals who had never raised concerns during production later testified against him, repeating Blake's narrative word for word without offering any first-hand proof of misconduct. What had once been a collaborative set suddenly became a wall of silence, and Justin was left standing on the outside, watching alliances collapse in real time. Isabella remains something of a question mark. She hasn't seen a major career leap yet, but given the pattern that's emerged, it wouldn't surprise anyone if an opportunity suddenly appears down the line. Because this was never about fear, discomfort, or safety on set. This was about control. It was about Blake methodically tightening her grip on it, ends with us, and building a protective circle around herself, one favor, one opportunity, one quiet transaction at a time. And behind every favor was an unspoken warning. Stay loyal or you're out. That's how Hollywood works when power lands in the wrong hands. Once Blake Lively had secured the cast, flipped the producers, and positioned herself as the dominant force behind the film, she made her final move, and it was ruthless. Justin Baldoni was stripped of his film by credit. That wasn't a minor slight or a petty dispute. A film by credit is a director's signature, the official acknowledgement of creative authorship. Removing it sends a clear message. This is no longer your film, this is mine. And not long after that, Blake launched the lawsuit. But this is where the entire strategy begins to unravel. In her legal filings, Blake accused Justin of creating a toxic, sexist work environment. Those are serious allegations. Yet when it came time to back them up with evidence, there was virtually nothing. No HR complaints filed during production. No contemporaneous written reports. No consistent or corroborated testimony. What remained were vague claims of discomfort, second and third-hand rumors, and stories that changed over time. Even Blake's own witnesses struggled to confirm that anything Justin allegedly did was motivated by gender, and that distinction matters a lot. Wayfarer's legal team repeatedly highlighted these gaps. The so-called sexy wardrobe comment centered on a baggy fleece onesie. The accusation of unscripted nudity involved a childbirth scene filmed under a prosthetic belly. Claims of a hostile work environment leaned heavily on hugging, a practice shared openly with both men and women on set. None of it held up under scrutiny, and yet Blake continued pushing the narrative, both in court and through the media, because this was never about justice. It was about removal. It was about credit. It was about control over the film's final legacy. But documents don't lie. Testimony doesn't magically strengthen just because it's repeated. And the cracks in this story are widening faster than Blake's PR machine can seal them. What started as a dispute over a film has now evolved into a case study in manipulation playing out in plain sight. And finally, people are paying attention. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just Hollywood drama. This is a full-scale takedown, and the truth actually matters. So if you're done with manufactured headlines and polished PR spin, and you want reporting that looks at the receipts instead of the press releases, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and if you've got it, hit the hype button to push this video further before it gets buried by the algorithm. Let's keep the pressure on. Let's keep exposing how this game is really played.